Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. I have been wanting to get Nicole Pratt on the show for so long and finally we have arrived. She's of course a Tennis Australia national teams coach, including the Billie Jean King Cup and so many other things, being former world number 35 in the world in singles, 18 in doubles, two-time Olympian, etc., etc., etc. Worked with amazing players and she's just an all-round, just a bit of a legend, like as a friend, as a person, as a coach. Welcome to the show, Pratty.
Thanks. Great to be here. And yeah, as you've said, we've been talking about this for a while. So I'm really happy that it's worked out that we get to sit down for an hour and chat all things, tennis, but as we know, tennis encompasses many, many different things.
Absolutely. And, you know, our audience is business coaches, sports coaches, we've got leaders, managers, and you really are a leader. When I think of tennis in Australia, the impact that you've had. Let's go there first. Did you ever expect to have such the impact that you've had?
No, not at all. I think I've just been sort of a person, throughout my playing career, and I don't think I've done it different in terms of my coaching career, and then you could sort of say my leadership. It's just I just really feel like being authentic, being honest, having a purpose, and really I think continuing to drill down on the areas that really matter, and not get sort of sidetracked or bogged down in a lot of different things that we know really don't matter to achieving outcomes. So I've just sort of done my thing. I felt like I've done my thing as an individual, and then sort of along the way, I've been I guess privileged to be able to impact different individuals or teams along the way, along the journey, along my journey of growth as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a never-ending process. I mean, we don't say, learning, tick the box. Yeah, I've done that. I mean, being a coach it's a lifelong journey of learning. That's for sure. So, you've coached some of Australia's best. What would you say is the commonality that makes up, the champion player? Is there something there, or is everyone different, or what's your take on working with so many amazing champions?
Yeah, I think that everyone's journey is different. However, there are, fundamentals that every great sports person has to have. Whether that be, the building blocks of, in tennis anyway, physical, tactical, psychological, and skills and technique. So, those foundations need to be there. I feel like my journey over time is there's been special individuals that have X factor. What is X factor? It's something that makes someone different. And so I've been privileged, like I said, privileged again to be able to work with, some of those players that have had X factor. And when I look at sort of younger players now that are coming through, I kind of look for that little bit of X factor of what someone's got, what has someone got that sort of makes them stand out. Yeah. And often it's simplicity of, for example, I said to someone the other day, there's a young Australian boy who I believe has some X factor, and he's done really well on a world stage already, being so young. And what is that X factor? He just has the ability to hit the ball in the court when it matters. He's still developing his skills, his physicality, but when he is in points play, and I had him hitting with some of our top female players, the kid gets the ball into the court.
Yeah.
And whilst that's so simple, it's not an easy thing to do in our game when it matters.
Yeah, totally. Let's go there next. At the highest pressure of sport, representing your country, the Billie Jean King Cup obviously was even just on recently. Where's the team at the moment? Where do you see their strengths and their areas for development with the state of play right today?
Yeah, I'm really pleased where we're at in terms of our culture. And our culture is such that every Australian women's player puts their hand up every single time and makes themselves available for BJK Cup, even when it doesn't fit their schedule, their individual schedule. So, for example, the last BJK Cup tie, players were flying from America to Australia, and that was kind of the stopover to get to Europe, right? It doesn't make any sense. So our culture is such, it's very strong. We've been fortunate to have our previous BJK Cup captain, Alicia Molik, that was in the role for 10 years, champion in her own right. And now, the team is captained by Sam Stoser. So I guess I've been sort of the conduit between both Alicia and Sam over the last, 11, 12 years. So, yeah, culture's great. I think we're looking to the future a little bit more now in the sense of, we've still got some older players that are doing well. When I say older, you've got Isla Tomljanovic, Daria Saville, Storm Hunter. They're now, Ellen Perez, they're getting close or are in their 30s. And then we had Taylor Preston debut as a 19-year-old last year, and we've had my joint debut as a 19-year-old. So we're and there's obviously some players in between those age groups that are really starting to hit their strides. Kim Birrell, number one Australian player, women's player, and then Pri Hon, Inglis. There's a whole group there that have the ability to step inside the top 100. So it's an interesting time. It's sort of not a complete rebuild, but it is sort of certainly exciting to think of the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about someone like Kim Birrell and her journey. I've had her parents on the podcast before and contributed to my book, What Makes a Great Coach. So she's certainly got great support there with her parents. But I want to talk about, the number of times the journey sort of looks like, I know this is an audio podcast, but ranking goes up, goes down, up, down, a bit like the Westgate Bridge, really, multiple times over. How does someone like that find the motivation to get back up and, in such a difficult sport? Because that relates to resilience, it relates to so many other people just struggling in life. Things are going well, things are not going well. So go there, maybe talk about your relationship with Kim and how that's evolved over time.
Yeah, like yourself, I've known Kim from a very young age. She was sort of based out of Brisbane when I returned to, Australia to start my coaching journey. So I was always aware of her from a young age. She was one of the best players in the country for her age group. And, you spoke about, different players' trajectory. It's very rarely linear. There's ups and downs, as you mentioned. And Kim's been a player that's gone through that with multiple injuries, probably career-threatening, particularly with her elbow. There were times there that she didn't think that she'd be able to have a professional playing career post those surgeries. So, yeah, that speaks to her determination, her resilience, her belief system. So I guess probably my more intimate journey with Kim in terms of player coach came about just recently, last September. She'd lost a tough match, second round of Wimbledon, and I was out watching another Australian player play in the qualifying, and she came and sat down next to me, and she pretty much poured her heart out and said, Nicole, I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. I know I want to be successful. I know I have what it takes to succeed. I just don't know how to get there. And she'd invested in a coach previously, earlier on in the year, and that relationship didn't go so well. So she was really just in limbo with her direction. And so we had that chat, and I sort of said, well, Kim, I agree with you. I believe in you. I believe you can do it. You just need to, I think, find some stability, find the right person to work with, to help create a pathway or a vision, let's say, where you're going to go and where you want to go, and align the process to your goals. So where is it you want to go? And so we had that chat, and then I got a phone call a couple of weeks later, and I was meant to be working the year with Storm Hunter, who, again, we talk about injury, was derailed with an Achilles rupture in April last year. So I was working with Marc Polmans at the time, and Kim called me and said, do you think, Marc, you would want to, well, first of all, would you like to work with me? Because I'd love to work with you. And would Marc be open to sharing you in the US? And that was a week prior to the US Open and US Open. And so long story short, that's where we started working together. Or instantly I thought, well, she had a great result qualifying for the US Open. She'd never qualified for the US Open before. And I really enjoyed my time with her over the 2 weeks. And I felt like, I could give her, some real tangible aspects of a game that she could improve upon and then take forward from that time together, because we didn't really talk about post US Open. And so then I get another phone call saying, would you go to Asia with me? So I freed up some time to be able to go to Asia with her, and she did really well. She made a first final of the WTA Tour event, and then all of a sudden she's back inside top 100, and early this year back inside top 100. She was briefly there for a week, and now career high 61 in the world. So I'm continuing coaching. I've been continuing to coach her this year, as well as returning with Storm.
Yeah. So the coach-athlete relationship, you had something there, and she said, hey, can we continue this? What can you just pull back the curtain a little bit and share what's the secret sauce there, or is there one?
I don't think there's any secret. It's about relationship, right? It's about connection, and those relationships are built on trust. And certainly player coach, there's an element of knowledge. You certainly have to have a certain amount of knowledge that the player feels like they can sort of take from you. And what comes with that, I feel like the secret sauce coaching is when you get that full engagement from the athlete. When they're hanging off every word that you're saying, they're looking you in the eye, they're asking for more. And, there's this, you can just sense it. They've got this constant craving that and it's almost like, the analogy I use as well is sometimes, like, when a player catches a wave, my recommendation is you keep riding that wave as long as possible. And, so I think what happens in those special relationships, there's times where, the player gets on the wave and they're riding it. And that, for me, is the moment that you can absolutely maximize their development. And when I say development, and this is probably a little bit different, maybe I think differently to some other coaches here, but I believe it's never too late to change. Like, you can refine, you can do things differently as an athlete. It just depends what you want to achieve. So the relationship that I have with Kim is, it's built on trust. It's built on trust. It's built on belief. Like, if player coach are not aligned with what they feel the athlete can achieve, there's a problem. Yeah. There's a problem. And so and I think, and care, like, I care for the people that I work with more so as people than probably the players. Like, as in, if someone asked me the question, like, what are you most proud of as a coach? I'm most proud of the relationships that I've built with my players. When you get the invitation to the wedding or to speak at the weddings that they have, or, a special occasion, you get the invite that they want you to be there for them. And they call you not just about tennis, they call you if sometimes they want some advice about relationships or, some things that are going on in their family. And it's a fine line too, right? As well. Like, you want to be the coach and not cross over into, friend, buddy. But I think you're all of that. You're all of that. You've got to be all of that at different times. But equally, the player's got to also know that you are the coach. And that's your fundamental job. So once we get to the tennis, when we walk onto the court and we cross the white lines, roles are very clear.
Yep. I love that in terms of a contextual marker. And I think that's important for parents listening as well, considering coaching your kids, or you are coaching your kids, having that contextual marker, I think is exactly what I'm hearing in what you're saying. And the other thing I know that you and I have spoke about more so recently is the simplicity of coaching. I mean, high performance sport is so complex, right? Yet how do you keep it simple, and why is simplicity like so powerful for success?
I think we're in an era of coaching where there's so much information. There is so much information out there. And my feeling is sometimes we just, as coaches, we overcoach. We overcoach. And especially if we haven't got the relationship, because we want to impart all this knowledge. So then, the player or the parent will, really trust what we're saying, and they'll think that we're really going to be able to help their son, daughter, et cetera, et cetera. But, when you break it all down, I think some of the best coaching is when you say less. I think some of the best coaching is about asking curious questions to the athlete. And sometimes, by doing it that way, they come up with the answers themselves, because they're the one that has to be out in the arena. They're the ones that have to take responsibility for their decision-making at the end of the day. So, I've found over the years that I probably talk less, ask more questions. If I do say something, it's very short, it's concise. I was challenged actually recently by a coach saying, they came and observed me out on court. And they're like, "Oh, Nicole, you're a real cheerleader. You're really like, come on, play, like, come on, great job," or, great shot. And I was actually challenged with, like, well, why is it great? Why are you not explaining to them why it's great? And, it was really thought-provoking. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I actually need to do that a little bit more, just so there's clarity for the player why I'm saying something's really, really good or really great. But I also think, and what I said to that coach at that time as well, is I said, well, I'm being somewhat of a cheerleader is because I believe the player needs it in this moment. And this is not a new concept, but coaches are performers. We perform. We have to perform. We need to be whatever we need to be in the moments for performance sometimes to get the result. However, on this particular occasion, I did take that on board. And then I actually made a really conscious effort of, when I was on the practice court with the player, is explaining a little bit more about why I thought something was really good or great.
Well, you and I have hung out enough to know you're sort of singing to my philosophy. I mean, I'm exactly the same in relation to, I used to overcoach, and now it's all about curious questions, or even, that was great, do you know why that was great? And even just getting them, as you said, it creates ownership, it creates accountability. And I still think it's a daily practice, because it's much easier to tell somebody just what to do. It's much harder to coach through the curiosity of questioning. So, which brings me to the curiosity of coaching on the men's tour and the women's tour. Like, is there a difference?
100% there's a difference. I don't think necessarily there's a difference in terms of the all-encompassing of tennis, let's say. So, again, go back to the technical, tactical, physical. Obviously, the physicality for men different, which, when you watch the tennis, it's different. It's different, but it's similar. I feel in my time of coaching, and it was a very short time, I'm going to own that, but I absolutely loved every single minute of spending, 6-7 weeks with a male player out on tour that I never had done previously in my career. And, the biggest difference for me was working with a male player provided many more coachable moments than I was used to working with a women's player. And what I mean by that is so much of the coaching I felt was done around a breakfast table, a lunch table, a dinner table, where almost in a way it would just come up where they'd be sitting with another peer and they're talking about some other player, and then I could sort of say, well, can you see the similarities between yourself and that player that you're talking about, or what, or what are the differences? And so then all of a sudden we started, having this really terrific, many terrific conversations about, different areas that they were going to take onto the court and almost so, which was born out of those conversations. And it was easy to find those moments. Like with women players, it's much harder to find the moments. They generally don't talk as much. And I'm being a bit stereotypical here when I'm saying this, because not all women players are like this. But, they generally don't want to talk about tennis. They want to talk about other things. Once they walk off the court, that's the tennis done, and they want to move away from that and do, things not related to tennis. So, and then even you don't get these opportunities very often as well, but particularly with this, male player, I was really purposeful with observing the first week or two and really just not giving too much at all. And then we're on the way home. We just finished a practice session and we're on the way home in the bus, and we're in London, so we're on the red buses. And he said, what did you think of my practice? How was my practice? Like, what are we doing tomorrow? Like, how do I get better? And, how are we going to go about this? And I'm thinking, wow, okay, I now have the moment. I now have the complete trust, the buy-in, and the ability to really impact this player because they've come to me. Versus generally in the past, I'd be like, oh, you need to do this, even before we probably spent that much time on court. So yeah, that was terrific, and I hadn't had that before, I guess, with a female player. So yeah, that for me was the difference.
Yeah. And what about, a business leader listening to this episode, right? Who's saying, I don't have buy-in, I don't have trust from my people, not yet. How do they build that to be able to then lead others? What are your tips on that?
Yeah, I think it's about vision. I think, what's the vision that you have for the company? Just like I have a vision, for a player. Sometimes the player doesn't even know that they're good enough to get there. So you've got to, instill belief, right? You've got to start it. You've got to start those conversations. And I think a lot of people, within different companies, let's say, don't believe that they can do the job to a certain degree, so or how do I do it effectively? And they're afraid to communicate. So, I think communication is huge, but let's just stay aligned here a little bit with the vision piece. How do you bring people into your boat? When you talk about analogies, it's like, for me, it's like, how do you bring people into your boat and get them rowing the same way? Because if they start rowing different directions, we're actually going to go nowhere. Yeah. So alignment to having a purpose, to achieve a vision, I think is something that's critical. Spending time to get to know your people is so important. I'm very aware in companies, and sometimes sports no different, like large organizations. It's, there's line managers, right? There's line managers all the way through, and you can't just listen to one line manager. You've got to go speak to everyone, because everyone is a part of your team. You've got to make sure that every single person within a team feels valued, that they matter, that they're going to make a difference. So that's the way I treat it with teams. Well, the teams that I work with in tennis, in and around the athlete, and I don't think it should be any different anywhere else if you want to achieve performance outcomes.
Yep, absolutely. So what life lessons has tennis taught you as a player? I mean, shout out to you as a player. I watched you play, and you were so gritty, and your career did span longer than most back in that day, if you don't mind me saying. I don't know how old you were when you retired, but you had an uncanny ability to never give up. I mean, as cliche as that sounds, that's what I remember of you when I was, inspired by you as a player. So what life lessons has tennis taught you?
It's taught me a lot of lessons. I think you never fail as an individual. You never fail. It's the fact that you went out there and tried, and if you can learn from losing, I'm not saying failure, if you can learn from losing and winning in the same way, then I think that bodes incredibly well throughout your life. Never give up, as you said. Always, don't be afraid to put yourself out there in terms of, just stepping into the arena. Just step in. Again, there's a lot of people that have written a lot of books about, lean in, step in, step up, etc. But yeah, you've got to, have the ability to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I'd say the ability to reinvent yourself at different times, like reinvent. Like if something's not working, I think have the bravery and the courage to reinvent yourself. And then really, I think ultimately at the end of the day, because I had a 19-year career, and it's like, what is the reputation? What if I retire tomorrow, what would they say about me? That's reputation. And I think, I'm very proud of the fact that my playing career was, I was someone that never gave up. Players, different stories I hear now, which is funny, which is, people really didn't want to play me. There are a lot of people that did not want to play me because they knew they were in for a battle.
Well, speaking of books, Pratty, for my book, as you know, What Makes a Great Coach, you feature in the manuscript.
I got it here.
Oh, awesome. Love it. So I asked you, of course, the Holy Grail question in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What makes a great coach? You said care, passion, and belief. And they're 3 words that you've already organically mentioned within this conversation. So, and also I appreciate that now. I asked you that question, probably 4 or 5 years ago. How do you feel today? Do you want to change your answer? Where are you at now with that?
I'm the same. I'm actually, very, like when you first brought it up, I was like, oh, what was my 3 words? And yeah, I had 2 of them, and then the third one, I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. I just think, passion. That's probably the one word I haven't said throughout our time talking, and I know you're very big on this, but passion, it does create the energy, right? It does create the energy. It's the reason why you wake up every single morning and you go about your purpose, what you want to do. And I just have I do. I just have such a passion for our sport. I have passion for the people that work within it. My two daughters now are playing tennis. They're playing a lot more tennis. So that's sort of something else I'm going to need to navigate moving forward. But yeah, I think passion is critical, and that gives you the longevity, right?
Yeah.
Because there's tough times. There's tough times for sure, where you've been knocked down at different times, whether it was in my playing career or even post playing in my coaching career or leadership career. It's if you don't have that passion, then when you do get knocked down, some people don't get up, and that's something I've been always able to do.
Yep. And you also mentioned momentarily reinvention. So shout out, of course, to Coach Connect. You're also now the president of the Women's Tennis Foundation. We've spent a lot of time going around Australia together, crafting these workshops for women in coaching. So could you just talk a little bit about that phase for you? And also, ironically, it really does relate to passion as well. We're asking these women to follow your passion and do what you're born to do. And now, you're in this next phase of your chapter as well. So can you kind of share with everyone a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I was tasked with a role at Tennis Australia with women in coaching. And what that really entailed was, if you talk about a KPI, I had to increase the amount of women coaches that we have across the pathway in Australia. And so it was a new challenge for me. So when we talk about reinventing, I was challenged with coming up with programs that were going to support women coaches across the nation. There's three big buckets with what needed to be achieved. One, we've got to attract more women coaches. Then the women coaches that we have, we need to further develop, right? We need to develop them, and hopefully what that leads to is retaining them. So we're having a large dropout of women coaches, particularly when they first came into coaching. And then, and it also wasn't just about providing programs, and Coach Connect is the all-encompassing program in and around, the support and the development for these women coaches, but it was also peeling back, the layers and like an onion, so to speak. There's many, many layers. And what sort of we needed to address as well is the environment that the women coaches are working within, because a lot of women coaches what I found out very quickly, were just trying to survive and not thrive. There's a big, big difference between those two words. So we set up these programs, and we had, I believe, after 2-3 years, we'd had a 45% increase in women coaches across Australia. But I tell you what, it's less about the numbers, but it's more about like the relationships that were built during that time, and you were there, and just sitting and listening to so many of the women coaches' stories, their disappointments, but equally their love for what they do. We had coaches who were just entering the coaching profession at 17, 18 years of age, and were working with women coaches that, were in their 50s, 60s, and still loving every minute. So such inspiring stories.
Yeah.
It was a new challenge, and for me, and something that I think over time, like you mentioned it, me now doing something different, is I just felt like during that time as well, I'm asking all of these women coaches to reinvent themselves to a certain degree, get into the arena, step up, step in, further develop yourself, go after your dreams. Why not? And so I think through that time as well, I just realized, you know what, like I need to be doing that as well. I need to be, not that I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing in the moment that I was doing it, but what is it that I need to do to fill my bucket that waking up every single morning and loving what I'm doing. And so, yeah, that led me to do what I'm doing today.
Yeah. And the role within the Women's Tennis Foundation, do you want to touch on your vision there?
Yeah, it's something new. I've only been the sort of the president of that, and it's my first, I guess, experience of being a president of a foundation. So yeah, I'm enjoying the challenge of, I think, redefining a little of what we're doing. And what we currently do is we give scholarships to up and coming women tennis players in Australia who aspire to represent Australia, to wear the green and gold, which is very aligned to, something I feel very passionate about. And yeah, so providing scholarships, but not only that, creating a sense of community for those women players to know that, whether they're winning, whether they're losing, we care about you, we support you. I've been fortunate enough, we've done a few education sessions for those players on Financial 101 with Morgan Stanley due to relationships I have with the WTA, which is fantastic. And I guess where I'd like to sort of take the organisation is continue with the scholarships in the community, because I think that's really integral to what we do. But equally, it's, what more can the players do in terms of giving back to another community as role models? So that's something sort of I'm working on at the moment is how to have these players connected to a community and something bigger than themselves. So I think that's a really, really important aspect of anyone's growth, anyone's when we talk about performance, athletes can get so wrapped up in just what's happening in the immediate. Yep. Versus having a bigger picture perspective, I think is really important. So if we can provide that for some players, I think that would be really positive.
Yeah, awesome. All right, you ready for your rapid fire?
Oh, okay.
All right, here we go. What animal is tennis?
Wombat.
What does tennis mean to you?
Everything.
Why does tennis scare you if it does?
The unknown.
When have you felt fully in command of tennis?
Never.
Who makes you think of tennis?
My tennis family.
What song is tennis?
Eye of the Tiger.
What object is tennis?
Round.
If you fully own tennis, what happens?
Limitless opportunity.
If tennis was a country, what would it be?
Australia.
What, if anything, has stopped you from owning tennis?
Nothing.
Beautifully answered. Our top 10 rapid fire tennis questions. Never been asked on the show before, by the way. You're the first.
Wow.
You're the first one.
I think I did okay.
You did amazing. You did amazing. And you are amazing, and you are an inspiration. And I appreciate every chance that we get just to chat about tennis, about life. We always talk about the person first and the player second. And that's all our conversations are around that, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whether you're a leader. So why don't you land this episode, Pratty, with what would be your 3 take-home messages? If you could leave anything with the world of coaches out there listening, valuing their time that they're spending in hearing what you have to say, what would you like to leave them with?
Be a lifelong learner. I think we've spoken about that. I actually brought, all of these books that I was going to reference potentially. But yeah, that's something I never stop learning. I don't know everything, but I try to sort of upskill myself. So yeah, be a lifelong learner. There are no excuses at the end of the day. There are no excuses. If you really, really, really want to do something, you can do it and achieve it. And I think, just listen, really listen. And I'm really working on that, because that's not one of my strengths. But if you do, it's amazing what can happen. Listen. Keep listening to those around you.
Yeah. Such great advice. This show is all about that, and we appreciate everyone for listening. The other one that I really like today is coach as performer. I know that's part of even Cliff Mallett's research in serial winning coaches. That's one of his things. So find ways to get yourself in state to perform each time you get out on the court, and then in the moment, read the energy of knowing what to say when. I think that's a really beautiful thing. And look for the X factor within the simplicity of the sport to be able to really make a difference. Thank you so much for, I feel like singing Eye of the Tiger or something. Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful year, and wishing all you and Storm, of course, and Kim and Mark and all the Aussies out there all the best. I never say good luck. I always say enjoy the battle of competition, which really summarizes you as a person as well. So enjoy the battle of coaching, and may we all listen to each other to become better coaches. Thanks so much, Pratty.
Thanks, Sam.
Appreciate you all.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.